We are Tailgate Talk. Welcome into the show. It's episode 13. The Michigan still sucks. I'm Matt Thomas. With me, we've got Kyle Mulwiney, Trent Williams, Kyle Schumann, and special guest for this big game week episode, sports writer for Nittany Central, Pat Sweda. Guys, how we doing?
Doing well.
Good.
Pumped
Pretty
for this
good.
week.
Yeah.
How are you doing, Matt?
Okay.
No, we don't care. Nick.
I'm a little tired. I'm a little tired. It was a busy bye. It was a busy bye week.
Of course, that would be his answer.
It was a busy bye week. You know, we were laying flooring down here, so it's good though. It's good though. Pat, welcome in. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. By the way, for everyone, once we get into hockey season, Pat's your go-to follow for all things Nittany Lion hockey, which I guess technically we are in because we're 2-0 to start, right?
Yep, 2-0 start. Got 2 wins this past weekend, Friday, Saturday. They look good. We'll see when they start playing Big Ten opponents, though.
They probably beat the Flyers this year.
Oh, Flyers suck.
That's not very hard.
Don't even get me started on the Flyers. Go off on the 6-minute tangent on the Flyers.
Oh man.
For the sake of your
They
sake.
just need to sell the team. Flyers just need to sell the team.
Wow.
All right, before any walls get broken, we're not going down the Flyers.
Yeah, Trent already fixed the wall this weekend.
So, all right, just all listeners out there, make sure that you're liking, subscribing at PSU Tailgate Talk. It's going to be a big stretch for the Nittany Lions for the next couple weeks. It's going to be a big stretch for us. Coco may or may not have made some promises about things he may do if Penn State wins certain games. So make sure you're following us to get all that content online. But before we get into the big matchup this week, we're going to talk a little bit of probably the biggest topic that all Nittany Lions fans are going to be listening to this week. Once again, the quarterback controversy / struggle that we find ourselves engulfed in this year. So, Pat, I can kind of let you kind of take your talking points and go because you wrote a very good article few weeks ago talking about the need to get Allar in basically now, like damn the torpedoes and let's just start Allar and move forward with this. So go ahead and explain your side of this.
Yeah, so I wrote that article before the Auburn game. And basically my premise was Drew Allar's the better passer. He has the more upside. And essentially this team is still very young. There's a lot of freshmen. There's a lot of sophomores. And my basic concept was that we should get him in now, get his reps, get him in big time environments, get some experience under him. So that way going into next year, we have a chance to make a run of the Big Ten championship and the college football playoff. And my issue with Clifford is that he just seems unsettled in the pocket a lot of times. Like I said, I wrote that before the Auburn game, which he looked pretty solid in. And I was like, oh crap, maybe I'm jumping the gun on this. But then Central Michigan, I saw some flashes where I was like, maybe not. And then last week, maybe it was the rain, maybe not. But there were some questionable decisions from Clifford as well. And I just think that like at this point, we know what we have in Clifford. And we know what his ceiling is. He's a serviceable quarterback, certainly. He's got, he had a solid 2019 season for us. But I think that Allar is the future. And I think that the only way for him to get better is to play him, honestly. And honestly, like I just think that Allers should be starting. I know that maybe that Michigan might not be the perfect opportunity. It's a tough environment, but then again, sometimes you got to throw them into the fire to see exactly what you got.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. So all things considered now, 5-0 going into Ann Arbor, you would still prefer to start Allar over Clifford?
Yeah, people often forget we were 5-0 last season. And I know going into the Iowa game.
I've mentioned that.
It reminds me of a lot. Just we got the big win early, and got the Wisconsin games, kind of like the Purdue game, and then we took down Auburn. It's just a couple MAC teams mixed in there, and then Northwestern's kind of like Indiana last season. And I know he was playing well in the Iowa game before he got hurt. And I don't know, maybe the injuries are still lingering with Clifford, but I just think the ceiling on Allar is so much higher than Clifford that I just think that if you give him the with the ones from the beginning of the game, I think he'll surprise some people just from the pure talent alone. And he doesn't look rattled, even when he comes into the games, even when he came into like the Purdue game, or you see him warming up on the sideline to come in like against Ohio. he's smiling, he's laughing, he looks loose, he looks ready to go. He hasn't looked nervous like we often will see from like a freshman that's thrust into the situation, kind of like Roberson last season.
Yeah, what I find interesting about this, and Pat touched on this a little bit, is the fan base is sort of split. You have two the four of us on here have been relatively pro Clifford, and then you have a whole half of the fan base that's screaming about putting Drew Allar in. But I find it interesting how after each week, like which side has the bigger voice almost. So Pat mentioned about that after that Auburn game, it was like the pro Allar guys didn't have that much to say after a performance like that. But then, you look at last week after Northwestern, the pro Clifford guys didn't have too much to scream about, and the Allar guys were a little louder. So I feel like it's really interesting how it sort of split the fan base. And I don't know if there is a right answer. One thing I say about this is, though, we've seen a very, very, very large sample size of Sean Clifford in his 15 years here. We haven't really seen a very large sample size of Drew. But the coaches are seeing a much larger sample size, right? They're at practice every day. They're every week, all throughout camp. I just feel like, and this has been our point, Pat. We agree. I think I agree that Allar is probably the more talented of the quarterbacks. My guess is that Clifford's experience sort of makes up that talent gap a little bit. But as far as like looking ahead, looking at the future, 100% agree. Like the better choice looking at the future, I would think is definitely starting Allar as soon as possible, getting him in there with those reps ASAP and getting him that experience. But I also look at this season ahead of us and I'm like, is the season at that point where it's like, is it at the point where we should move on from Clifford? We're 5-0. I don't think he's really done anything to deserve that.
I think I was thinking about this a little bit. Like in my opinion, I think if we go 1-2 the next 3 games, I feel like we're obviously out of the Big Ten East race, we're out of the Big Ten race. I feel like at that point we can still have a good season, but we can still throw Allar in there for the rest of the season. Still finish with a good record. Still have stiff competition in the Big Ten down the schedule there. But at the same time, like you'll have those big games where Clifford can prove himself, like he did in the Purdue game, where throws a bad interception, leads a game-winning drive, and like you want to pull out your hair 1 second and make the guy present the next. So like it's just one of those things where I think we can still get Drew playing time later in the season if the season's lost, and we still have him for big opportunities. But I think right now I'm hoping it's Clifford's experience that pulls us 2-1 the next 3 games, in my opinion.
Yeah. And this conversation is fun. Like it's fun to talk and debate. But really, do you think Frank? Like, I don't think there's any possible way Drew Allar plays this season unless Clifford gets hurt. Like, that's the only way I truly see Drew Allar playing like valuable time, besides coming in a series or 2 in garbage time, or to get throw something a different look out there. But I just think this coaching staff has their mind made up. So this conversation, this debate among the fans, I don't think that same debate's happening in the locker room.
So let me ask you this then: if Clifford comes out flat against Michigan and maybe even comes out poor, I mean, do you make an adjustment at halftime?
If Clifford comes out and we're getting, we're down 3 scores, I think you then have to go to that. Do I think the coaching staff will? I don't. I don't think they'll make that move even in that case, and that might be a problem.
So if we're down, I don't know, 28-7 or 21-0 at halftime to Michigan, worst case scenario, and they put, Drew Allar in the second half, and he could, let's say he makes a run, makes a game of it late. Do you think there's a possibility that he could steal the job from Clifford, or do you think this coaching staff is too committed to Clifford long term?
Trent, this is where like I agree with you in a sense, but we kind of saw them almost take a different route with Nick Singleton, right? I mean, we would have thought that they would have stuck with Lee a lot more, and then we kind of saw, I think it was Auburn, if I'm not mistaken, Nick Singleton comes in and starts the game. I wasn't expecting that, and I don't think anyone
was. And I think I've mentioned that myself. Like everyone's saying Franklin's so loyal to Clifford, like he's too loyal. And I said that exact same point. Like he did make that change up with by starting Nick Singleton, which I don't think we expected to see that. But that's my point, is if he's willing to do it at the running back position, why isn't he willing to do it at the quarterback position? And that's where I think maybe we're just seeing a small sample size where at practice, there's coaches are seeing a lot more at practice. They're getting all those stats everything at practice is recorded. All those stats are like put into softwares and analyzed. So I'm thinking there's more at practice that Clifford is showing maybe, but at the end of the day, right, in-game performance is really the only thing that matters.
Yeah. To answer your question, Pat. So if that happened, I would still lean towards them starting Clifford for the Minnesota game. Just because we've kind of seen that happen already where Clifford gets banged up for whatever reason, he comes out not playing well, and then he gets another shot the next week. I think the leash gets a lot tighter for sure, but I still see them rolling with that. Honestly, so I'm probably the swing vote out of the four of us. I can see it both ways. Like, I think we all can, but like depending on which way the wind's blowing, like I can feel a different way. And I was looking at some of these like numbers and deeper analytics today. It really just is a Rorschach test. It's whatever you want to see out of the picture is what you're going to see. Like, and I come down to like, yes, Allar does everything better that Clifford struggles at. Deep throws under pressure, big time plays, all that kind of stuff. But it's 19 throws. Clifford has 120 more throws than Allar does this year. So I kind of think that the name of the game for these next 3 weeks is reducing the risk. And yeah, we kind of know where Clifford's ceiling and floor are, but they're defined, right? And for better or for worse, however, good or bad he's played over the last 4 years, with the exception of maybe Ohio State 2020, we've been in these big games within about a score going into the fourth quarter. So, I just don't feel like I'm at the point where I'm ready to say, Allar can get us there and take us to the next step, where I think Clifford can at least get us in that ballpark. And, the other tools that we have around him that we haven't had before, we can maybe, get us that next step.
Yeah. That's sort of where I am. I will say, like, this past weekend with Northwestern, though, some of our main arguments in favor of Clifford was, he's not going to lose you a game. He's not going to put yourself he's not going to make those mistakes that a young quarterback might. But then when I seen some of those throws he was making against Northwestern, the pick that was dropped and then the pick that they did have, they were throws that you cannot be making. Like that is what gives him an edge, in my opinion, over a guy like Drew Allar. So when he's making those mistakes, he's losing that edge. And that's where they become a lot more equivalent.
Yeah, I was going to say it wouldn't shock me if he came out and throw three interceptions too. So like it's just it's really hard to
would it be shocking if he led a opening drive, like 6-minute drive down the field and threw a good pass to like Lambert Smith or something at the same time? Like it's that kind of inconsistency.
Well, it would, because I don't think Keandre Lambert Smith's going to play this week. But
is he out?
But
I don't know.
Other than that, no, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be out or not. But yeah, it's just, I think we've seen it all from Clifford, so I don't think he could do anything that would surprise us. But yeah, it's I don't know.
And Pat was saying how obviously we have a bunch of freshmen, sophomores playing, right now. And at what point, like I said earlier, do you scrap this season and go on for next year when, let's be honest, next year we're going to be a tank next year. So yeah,
don't get ahead of yourself.
Being honest here,
let's just worry about this season first.
Yeah, well, but that's the thing that I go back and forth about. It's
important to think about. Like,
well, yeah, I mean, and Kyle, you said before, I mean, obviously, if we, don't fare too well in these upcoming games, God forbid, but obviously Drew would go in my opinion, he should go in at that point just to get him experience going into next year. But while we're still kind of going into these big games, I think Clifford's experience will take us where we need to, hopefully at least.
Listen, I'm not even thinking along those lines. I'm just thinking about what is going to give us the best shot to win these next 3 games, or at least come out with a winning record. And I don't know, like,
I definitely see where Pat was coming from too. I mean, Drew definitely shows some flashes, but then to Trent's point too, you haven't seen enough of him. But then as a coach for an opposing team, you can't really game plan for him because you haven't seen enough of him. Where Clifford, we know what Clifford's going to do. I mean, obviously the other teams have a pretty good idea of Clifford's strengths and his weaknesses, even if he does like to mix it up every other series.
Well, some of his early games were in black and white, so the tape's not quite as good of a quality on them.
Wow.
Matt has
I saw those
he has
games
the
in
reels.
person.
Yeah.
I took the notes for those.
Yeah.
But on one hand, does that give somewhat of an advantage? Because everyone's talked about year 2 under Mike Yurcich, year 2 under Mike Yurcich. Does that give Clifford an edge that he has a command of this offense that can do something that maybe Allar can't right now?
I think that'll. I mean, really, I feel like both sides of this conversation talk in circles. Like, both sides of it. At the end of the day, none of us, unfortunately, get to make that decision. My opinion doesn't really matter. Pat's opinion doesn't really matter. Winnie's might matter a little bit.
Thank you. I was hoping
it's
you'd
probably,
say that.
But really, at the end of the day, like, it's just a fun conversation. I would think most sides agree that Franklin's going to be a lot more loyal to a guy like Clifford before he's willing to throw a guy like Allar, and that's I think that's really where we're at with this.
Hey, you had Winnie screaming at clouds last year for running the ball more under center, and we're doing that more this year. So I mean, maybe his opinion does matter a little bit more.
Yeah, my voice gets heard. Just takes a little while.
Anything else we want to add on this? I think we've kind of beaten it to death a little bit, considering the fact that we're probably gonna have to talk about it again at some point.
Yeah, it'll probably be the same conversation next week. It's just
Probably next week.
Yeah, we could just play it on a loop. Did we lose Pat in the remote wilderness?
Either we lost him or he's unhappy with Kyle right now. There he
He's
is.
back.
Hey, Pat.
Maybe not.
Well, we'll keep rolling and hopefully we still get to have him on.
Well, I want to make sure he can hear my lead into Michigan in case there's anything that he doesn't already know. So, figured.
All right. I don't know about you guys. That lead into Michigan, this has a big game feel. These big games, they just feel different all week long. Going into them, sitting at work, it's Monday. I already just have like these butterflies in my stomach. Just can't wait for it to get here.
I had the jitters last Wednesday about it. So the bye week and everything. Like, I've been ready to go for 2 weeks now.
That might have just been too much coffee, but
I'm on a restricted diet now. I can't do that. But
gotcha.
Yeah, no, it's just also just knowing what these next 3 weeks could be. Like, it's hard. You don't want to think about it because odds are it's probably not going to happen. But oh my gosh, if by some chance it's just going to be insane.
Yeah.
So
no, I mean, I know where you're going with that, Matt. But to Pat's point, we were 5-0 to start the season last year. Like things could take a very quick turn. I haven't really looked ahead that much. It's fun to think about, but at the end of the day, this Michigan game, we can't win the next 3 if we don't win this one. So,
well, as I've been reminded numerous times on Twitter over the last couple of days, the last time Penn State beat a top 5 team on the road was 1994 against number 5 Michigan on October 15th. So, I mean, fate, right?
Yeah.
I've
seen Michigan has won 11 straight home games. Their last loss coming to us in 2020.
Yeah, no fans, but so that's a good lead in. Michigan 6-0 this year, 5 in the AP, dropped the spot after last week, 5 in the Football Power Index, dropped the spot. Jim Harbaugh is 4-3 against Penn State in his 7 years. This is now his 8th year at Penn State. And as we talked last week, Franklin is 1-2 coming off of buys against Michigan. And we just lost Pat. But he'll join us back at some point. He has the link. Right. So we carry on.
He had enough of us.
Yeah, he said his Allar piece, and
this will test Winnie's computer skills when Pat. Let's see if Winnie can do this then when he goes to edit the podcast.
Oof.
There we go. We got him back. We're good. Back in yours.
Oh.
And all right. We're going to keep moving along, and when Pat can hear us, he can come on back. So, all right, just a few more high-level stuff before we can start talking about this. Michigan offensively ranks 7th in the country in points per game, 43, 29th in yards per game, 458. They are the 20th best rushing team in the country. Defensively, 5th in points allowed per game, 11. fifth in yards allowed per game. Well, we're not gonna take any shots at any particular companies that provide Wi-Fi services. So, because just in case they ever want to support the show, but yes, Pat, we hear you. Yards per game, Michigan is 247, and they had the 7th and 11th rushing and passing defenses in the country, respectively. So, where do we want to take this first? I've got thoughts, but I don't want to monopolize the conversation to start. So,
I was hoping you'd actually take it. I like when you lead
I
in with
feel-
your 3.
No, I'm gonna take it.
All right.
That's what
Oh, Trent's 3.
I love to talk. We
Trent's
know
3
that.
keys. Here we go.
We know that.
Trent,
No, I don't have 3 keys. Yeah, just general vibe I've been getting is Penn State fans as a whole feel a lot more confident about this game now than we did at the beginning of the season. I'm still not there yet. I still haven't quite gotten over the hump. Do I feel better? Yes. I'm still not feeling it like a victory this week.
Why?
I mean, I'll just get right to it.
Why?
So Michigan's
Why?
getting slammed. Michigan's getting slammed, right, for their strength of schedule. They haven't played anyone so far. I mean, each week our strength of schedule, it's not looking. I think we're 12. Our opponents are 12 and 18 right now. Like
Their non-conference opponents are 5 and 13.
Yeah,
Ours are much better though.
No. I mean, Central Michigan's 1 and 5. Ohio's 3 and 3. Auburn's 3 and 3. So, I mean, Auburn, yes, has been starting to play some tougher teams, getting the SEC schedule. Understand that. Central Michigan, we didn't look great against. Central Michigan, since they lost to us, they also have lost to Toledo and Ball State. They have not really played anyone that great, and their one win is against Bucknell. So, our strength. My point is, our strength of schedule is nothing to like hang our head on right now, and that's what most Penn State fans are pointing towards for Michigan's fault right now. Is like they've played no one. Well, like at the beginning of the year, our strength of schedule looked really good, but to this point, it's taken a beating.
For me, it's more of a style of play. Like I just think that we match up well with the way Michigan plays football. And I felt the same way, honestly, like last year too. I think we more so lost that game than Michigan won. I wasn't that high on Michigan last year, and I'm still not that high on them this year. Like they're a good team. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that they're not a good team, but I
mean, and again, like the efficiency supposedly takes strength of schedule and all that into place, but like defensively, they're better. Like I'm just talking efficiency wise, like they're ranked higher. Offensively, they're ranked much higher. Defensively, comparable. Special teams comparable. Overall, they're ranked higher. Like this is still a very good Michigan team, and we have moments this year where we look great, and I feel like, man, we could go beat them. But then we also have moments where like the past 2 weeks where we haven't played that great. Like, yeah, Michigan, they struggled a little against Maryland. They struggled a little this past weekend in the beginning, but that took a turn ugly real quick. There's just not, like, my opinion hasn't changed. Do I think there's no shot we win? No, I think I wouldn't be shocked if we went out there and beat them, but there's no way I'm leaning towards a victory like I feel like a lot of Penn State fans have turned to.
Before we lose them again, let's go to the one that does this for a living to get some expert opinion on how the big game trends going into this one.
Yeah, so sorry about that. That was my satellite Wi-Fi that, thank you, Elon Musk. So I missed a lot of what you guys said already, but my biggest thing going into this game is that Franklin is 1-3 in Ann Arbor, and that one win came in 2020, which was, I don't really count. There's no fans, no environment, none of that kind of stuff. And I know you guys have talked a lot about Franklin off a bye week, which is also not great. So I personally have not. I'm excited about the game, but I'm also kind of just, maybe it's coming off the bye week and it'll take me this week to kind of get juiced up for it. But I'm a little bit pessimistic about like what exactly we can do, because going into the season, this is a game that I penciled in as a loss. I mean, I had us going 10-2 with the loss of Michigan and the loss to Ohio State. So I still kind of feel that way. I don't know. I mean, I know Michigan hasn't played much of a schedule yet. Their strength of schedule is 95, but ours is also 90th, according to the FBI. So, we might have bigger names on there, but the teams that we have played haven't really panned out the way that you would have hoped going into the season.
Yeah, and
I'm sorry, Matt. You want to go?
I was just gonna tag on to that. It feels like the big game trend, like the high level trends with this series is usually we just swap home and homes. Obviously they got one last year, we got one in 2020, which whatever, but usually it's the home team winning. So, I mean, I would feel a lot better about this one if it was home, but I don't know. I just haven't seen that much from Michigan this year so far. So, Coco, what do you got?
No, I'll say what's not about. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like last year they had the big games on defense with Jobo and Hutchinson and all those guys. I feel like this year the script's flipped a little bit where they have some bigger names on offense and they have some QB controversy in the offseason, but I feel like their offense is hitting their stride right now. But I have that weird PSU fan optimism going this game. I'm going to build myself up that our strength is our secondary. They have a good passing game, so that kind of negates out against one another. And I don't know. I'm talking myself into that we're going to win this game. In the preseason, I thought we were going to lose, but now as Trent said, PSU fans are talking themselves into winning this game, and I'm one of those fans just to get my heart broken. But
I honestly, at this point, when Pat came on, Pat reiterated, Pat and I seem to be on the exact same page for this game, but I feel like a majority of the fans have sort of went with the way Kyle just described, where it was a game where they thought we really had no shot of winning. And each day we get closer, it's like they're talking themselves into it. I just can't bring myself to that yet.
I think part of it being, count out the rain. I really wanted us to go against Northwestern and just show up and just really kind of put it to them. Unfortunately, I think the rain really put a damper on things, no pun intended. But thanks, Matt. What I would like though is just to see the team play a complete game, like everybody on, full bore. And I think we kind of saw that against Auburn, regardless if you want to say Auburn was a good team or not, looking at it now. But there was a lot of hype around that game at the time. And I think we really stepped up, going into a tough environment. And I think we could do that again here. I just, we haven't seen the running game. I think, excuse me, Allen's been doing a decent job, but Nick Singleton's kind of fallen off the tracks a little bit. The receivers have been somewhat quiet. Clifford's been up and down, like we said. I think it would be a great game for us to just see the team come together and just really go all out.
I also wonder, not to kind of backtrack a little bit, but coming off the bye week, I wonder what influence Manny Diaz has. Being a head coach somewhere else, for however good or bad that Miami project turned out. I wonder if his influence and just how to manage a program kind of helps this team and helps Franklin, with that bugaboo that he's had. They did change some things in how they operated on the bye week. I don't think that's necessarily a coincidence that it happens in the year that he comes. So I'm curious to see how we start the game,
Yeah, and I think that exactly. I don't think it hurts. And I think that Franklin, some of the changes he mentioned are he has to see his own stats of his own teams coming off bye weeks, right? He has to know that, and he had to eventually put one or two together. The way we're handling the bye week currently is clearly not working. So, I guess that's a good sign that, we see some changes. How significant those changes are, I guess we'll find out this weekend. But I feel like we are, I think we're a comparable team to Michigan.
Oh, for sure.
I do think that. To me, it's they're probably around 4 points better or so than us. And that home field advantage gets them that extra 3 points there. And that there's that touchdown spread that we're seeing. It's just those factors combined and sort of, our track record in these big games are what is, making me lean very heavy towards I just don't see us coming out of here with a victory.
Well, just go back real quick to Matt's Manny Diaz point. Do you guys think that, in that Auburn game, I don't think we've seen it since with, these exotic blitzes and, different coverages. Do you think, I feel like the past few games have been very vanilla in that sense because we just outmatch a team physically and skill wise. I'm just excited. We better see some exotic blitzes and to get their QB off balance because we worked against Auburn. I feel like Auburn's O-line is the strength of their team. Michigan on their offense is their O-line's one of their strengths. Hopefully we can.
And we can't go this far without. They have this running back. Not sure if you heard of him at Michigan. Pretty darn good.
Pretty good.
So I think defensively. Now that being said, Kyle, you're talking about Auburn. I think that was the same threat going into Auburn with Tank Bigsby and the Auburn's dual threat running back there that they had. Like, I don't think we were too worried about the passing game going into Auburn. It was more focused on the run game. Where Michigan, they're a lot more dual threat, right? They have Blake Corum back there, and they have that running game, but they could also throw the ball.
Yep.
Well, all right, let's dive into this a little bit because I have spent.
What have we been doing?
I thought we were.
Well,
diving.
that was the high level
I
kind
had
of stuff.
I had my
geez.
goggles on
Hey,
and
listen,
everything.
listen. If you're not throwing out a stat, then you're not diving in. So otherwise, you're just giving your opinion. And opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one. So
Pat just said his internet's going to cut out again. So
I don't blame him.
Mine might cut out here too, so I can go off on this tangent.
Doesn't matter.
Let's hear your three. Let's hear your three keys to the game.
I've got enough that I could go the rest of the show and still hit an hour. So
please don't do that. But.
All right. Yeah. So first, obviously, stopping Michigan offensively has to start with Blake Corum. 735 yards, 11 touchdowns on the year, 6.2 yards per carry. He is a strong running back, figuratively and literally. 25 forced missed tackles on the year. I think that's still the top in the FBS. I know it was going into last week.
Hard hitting. He is a strong running back.
375 yards after contact, 3.2 yards average. And he's prone to hot starts, 282 yards, 8.1 yards per carry, 4 TDs in the first quarter of games this year. So like we said, we have to try to figure out how to keep him contained. I think Indiana actually did a good job of that on Saturday. I don't know how much of the game any of you all got to watch, but I think they did a decent job. They just didn't do it all the time. And he was still able to break those big runs. So, obviously he's going to do that again. It's just, are those runs going to be 15 yards or are they going to be 50 yards? Yeah, we have the 5th best rushing defense in the country. I think it actually matches up well, considering that surprisingly Michigan's offensive line is not playing that great. It's only slightly above average. If you look at their line as a unit in the PFF rushing grades, it's 67, which is just kind of slightly above average. So I do think there's opportunity there to contain him and then put the game on JJ McCarthy.
Are we better or worse than them in that PFF grade?
Oh God, that's a great question.
Oh, Matt, you were prepared. You were prepared, Matt. Oh,
yeah. Give me.
How the hell does it feel?
Give me 30 seconds.
It's bad podcasting right now, Matt.
Listen, Coco. If you saw the amount of information that was on, PFF, your brain would explode. So,
how do we feel about the noon game? Right, we got the big noon kickoff. That can't hurt us in any way. It has to help us, if any. I know Michigan's not known to be this big, rowdy, loud environment, but it certainly has to benefit us being a noon game. So I like it as an away fan, but I'm gonna get sick of these big noon kickoffs quick. I'm not I hate the fact that all of our big games for the foreseeable future with this new Big Ten media rights deal are going to be at noon. It's going to. What makes college football so great is the atmospheres. And I don't care how big a game it is, that noon game atmosphere does not have the same vibe as especially a night game, but not even a 3:30 game.
I mean, I've said it a couple of times on here. I think the matchup and the conditions of the matchup.
Yeah, you can't tell me that. You can't tell me the noon game at the Ohio State noon game would be the same atmosphere as if it was a 8 o'clock whiteout Ohio State game this year. Not even in the same atmosphere.
I do want to push back a little bit. I know the future TV deals, we still are going to get night games. I mean, they're still doing the TV draft between CBS and NBC. So I mean, while it might not be Kirk Herbstreit on the call, it wouldn't shock me if a lot of the whiteouts are still going to be just hopefully not Mike Tirico, but an NBC broadcast nonetheless. So I know the big noon kickoff they'll get the priority, but obviously their first choice every single season is going to be Ohio State, Michigan. And if Penn State's, one of the top teams in the Big Ten, will be the second or third choice in there. So I imagine we'll be on CBS and NBC quite frequently.
And the thing too is you hear everyone that goes to these games, we all listen to Josh Pate. He goes to Big Noon a lot, and they rave about the crowds. Every Big Noon crowd so far has been phenomenal.
It's going to be a good crowd. It's a big game. It's a huge game. It's going to be a good crowd. It doesn't compare. If you go on Michigan's Twitter feed, everything is just about the fans complaining about it being a noon game. And it's no different than like when the Ohio State game's a noon game. Everyone's going to complain about it. It's just when you're the home team, you don't want a noon game for your big game atmosphere.
I still think it has some advantages. I think it could play
For the away team, I do.
No, I think it has advantages for us. Like I said, especially you have big noon kickoff there, you have game day there. You can get everyone worked up into a frenzy early in the morning and just kind of carry it right into the game.
Game day's gonna be there either way, whether it's a night
Yeah,
game
but then you have to like you get everyone together, worked up into a frenzy at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then they have to build back up into it at 7 o'clock. Here you're just going to take that right into the game.
I disagree.
Yeah.
I think you got to realize,
wrong.
Matt, like at a noon game,
No,
so
I don't
many
think so.
students are rolling out of bed at 11 o'clock and walking in. Like there's an anticipation that builds up to those night games, unlike anything else.
But see, that's where I disagree, because I think if you're playing Ohio State,
because you're 90 years old.
No, okay, if you're playing Ohio State at noon and both teams are undefeated, so everyone's just gonna wake up at 11 o'clock. No, that's idiotic. Everyone's gonna get up at like 4 a.m.
Listen, yes, I'm not saying it's not going to be a good atmosphere. It's going to be, but you can't tell me all else equal, an 8 o'clock atmosphere wouldn't be better than a noon atmosphere. If all else is equal, the same matchup, the same record, everything else being the same, the night atmosphere is going to be better. It's just common sense.
I mean, I still
think not saying it's going to be a poor atmosphere. It's not going to be like Northwestern this week. Yeah, we're playing Ohio State with hopefully one loss at most going into that game. But it just does not have a noon game. I mean, we've had a noon whiteout before, right? It was atrocious. It was disgusting.
But that was also when we had 3 losses. So my whole point is, I think it's going to be
okay. But you know what? We've also played horrible teams like whatever at 8 o'clock at night, and it's a great atmosphere because it's at night. Doesn't matter who we're playing.
I beg to differ. Some of those Georgia States and they haven't been that great. Like, I still think my whole point is I think it's comparable to what you would expect. So whiteout game has that magic. Night games have that magic. But anyway, we're not talking about that. We're talking about Michigan. So
we'll save this for the Ohio State game.
Yeah, we'll have the same argument.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're gonna have the same argument till the end of time, and then he's gonna have a great experience. He's gonna be like, you know what, Matt, you're right. So actually, no, Trent never admits that he's wrong. But I want to talk about I want to talk about JJ McCarthy. What do y'all think about JJ McCarthy? Yeah. Anyone have thoughts? No.
I mean, all right. So Kyle mentioned how it was a quarterback controversy at some point. He's not bad. This is where I'll point to, his sample size. This is where the strength of schedule they played. Like, he really hasn't played this season against anyone great where I could look at him this season. Where Clifford, we have, that 15-year track record. So JJ McCarthy, I mean, this is a huge game for him this weekend, right? This is where he gets to really show out and see if he's legit, if Michigan's legit, or if they're sort of in a situation like us where the quarterback play maybe not be stellar.
This is his first big game as a starting quarterback, and he's gonna be going up against his best secondary yet. So I think, again, going back to that exotic blitzes, I really hope that we can, especially on passing downs, mess
get
with
on him early.
Exactly, get him early and get him uncomfortable back there, and that way focus on the run. Like, I think we really need to focus on the run, because I think we can man up on the outside against these guys and just hopefully get them out of whack.
I feel like there just isn't a lot of talk going into I mean, it's Monday, so I guess it could build up to that, but there isn't a lot of talk about this being a big test for him. Like, I feel like, I mean, granted, we're on the Penn State side, but most of it is the test that we're going to see with him, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Which I just don't think that's accurate.
Yeah, I mean, I seen a question today, like, who has more pressure to win this game? Like, James Franklin and Penn State or Jim Harbaugh and Michigan? It's like, I honestly, I think it's very comparable there as well. Like, I think both sides are. I wouldn't say one side is like a clear favorite in terms of like they have to win this game. I think both teams want to win this game very badly. I don't think a loss kills either team's season. Like,
I think there's still like so many questions for Penn State though, right? Like there's still the Drew and Sean, back and forth, and then there's Allen and Singleton. And then even looking at the receiver, there still hasn't been like one guy who really just jumped out and kind of taken it. So I think that's where like from people looking outside, I mean, we're Penn State fans, so we have obviously a different perspective, but people looking outside, it just seems like there's still so many uncertainty with our team, where I can kind of see like where the focus really isn't on them with their quarterback. I don't know.
But from the Michigan perspective, though, like they have a lot to prove too. Like I go back to Saturday's game, and if you were listening to the broadcast, like Joel Klatt basically just said that their offense is stale. Like I'm pretty sure he said that verbatim. Like he was talking about how, the tendencies are whenever they motion, they're running, and whenever they're static, they're passing. And like for a Power 5, like a playoff contender, that's not something that you can do. Like, so I think they have a lot to prove too. And going back to McCarthy, he has a ton that he has to prove. He has 1,100 yards on the year, but 55% of those yards come on passes that are 9 yards or shorter. For comparison, that's roughly about the same percentage of Clifford's passes, and we all rightfully so complain about them not airing the ball out enough. He hasn't been pressured either. So this stat blew my mind when I looked at this yesterday. He's been sacked 4 times, right? Then Michigan's opponents overall have 4 quarterback hurries and 10 pass breakups on the year. Like that's nothing. Like it's unbelievable actually. And when he's pressured, his PFF grade goes from a 76 as a passer to a 37.
Exotic blitzes.
Yeah, so it's like you said, Coco, you have to rely on that elite secondary. And then the other thing that I noticed is that interior line of the line that Michigan has, I think is suspect. Their center is fairly strong, but their left guard, Trevor Keegan, has a PFF pass block grade of 47. And their right guard has, an average grade, but he's had some real clunker games. So I think if you could bring those exotic blitzes, bring Abdul up the middle, bring Chop on stunts, like I think you can get in McCarthy's face and really force him to make some bad decisions.
Yeah, and I think that is going to be the game plan. But I think with that, right, we have to be prepared that we might be giving up some yardage, we might be giving up some big plays, and then our offense got to be able to counter that. Because I mean that's the risk when you're going to play that style of defense. Auburn clearly wasn't talented enough to overcome that style of defense. They didn't have the quarterback play to overcome that style of defense, and they just didn't have the athletes out in space to beat our corners. Where Michigan might. I don't like Matt just said. There's a lot of questions out there, but if they do, then that style of defense could hurt you and hurt you quick if we're going to play aggressive like that. So I think that is going to be the game plan, but also, I mean, depending on how they handle it, you might see us walk that back quick and go to a more conservative style, traditional defense, to try to let our offense, get points on the board and get caught back up.
Yeah. I mean, even Indiana's pass defense is not that great, and they still
like. I mean, it's so hard to compare, right?
Yeah.
To other teams, to other games. I mean, all this stuff is so hard to compare. You could look at, our strength of schedule versus that, but there's no way to really look and be like, how would Michigan have fared against Northwestern in a sloppy game like that? There's no way of knowing that. They weren't there in that sloppy game to play it.
Do their coaches tell their running backs to hold on to the football?
That would be the difference makers. They're running well.
Yeah.
I was going to say the running back coach would tell them that, but that might bring up a sore subject. So, but good news on that. He seems like his health report has been pretty good this week. They've gotten some good news on that. So that's always good to see.
Yeah. And then just to follow up on that, I figure we break out the weather forecast. It looks like it's going to be clear on Saturday, so no rain. It's a good sign for the running backs.
Yeah, good. The coaches don't have to tell them to hold on to football, so that's good.
I have another weird stat. This is actually our first game on field turf this season.
Wow.
So
wow.
I don't know.
I would
I don't
not
know
have
if that factors in
anticipated that.
anything, but
Does anyone know
different.
offhand? Does anyone know offhand what Governor Mifflin's field was comprised of? Can we look back and see?
I think it might
it was
be
turf. It's turf.
I think it's turf.
All right, we're good. Yeah.
See, Matt rolled off 40 stats today. Pat rolled
I
off
still got
one.
more.
Pat rolled off one. I like Pat's stat better.
That's the most interesting stat we've heard today.
Well, that's because it's just easily comprehensible by your tiny brain, Coco.
I'm pretty sure Pat's read off more than one, but good thing you heard that one at least.
So, one other area that I think is going to be interesting to watch out is how do third downs play out. So we've gone over our struggles at length about third down offense. Michigan also not very good, 45% on the year. They struggled on Saturday again, 2 of 7 on third and 5+. But defensively, both teams do fairly well in this area. 20th overall for Penn State and 26th for Michigan. So, basically you're looking at whatever team can kind of outperform offensively that average, I think is going to see some success. 2 of Michigan's 4 touchdown drives on Saturday didn't even get the third down. So I think if we can force them in third and long, then I kind of like our chances. And it goes back to putting McCarthy under pressure, making him make those throws. Like it's just, you just kind of talk yourself into a circle with this stuff. But
so we just gotta send our defensive game plan to Manny and we'll be set.
Tell you what, my uncle, his neighbor, used to handwrite letters and plays and send them to Joe every single season. So I might not be too long till I have to look up Franklin's address and start sending him some of this stuff. So
he will go. He will take the Nebraska job.
Frank, me, yeah, I'll take.
No, Franklin. Franklin, if you start doing that, Franklin will be. There won't be rumors. He will be at Nebraska.
Yeah, if you attempt to be a pen pal,
we're just clearing the way. We're clearing the way for Matt Rule.
Yeah, so Matt Rule opening isn't it?
Yeah,
is an interesting one.
See if Pat likes it. Yeah, when James Franklin goes to Wisconsin, or maybe he'll go to Carolina. We'll just go right to the NFL. So, do we have anything else that we want to say on this game? I think we've kind of. Oh, wait, I do have one more thing. No, well, this will make Winnie happy because he's touched on this a lot. Battle of the kickers. Ooh. So, yeah. So Michigan's kicker, Jake Moody, 75% on the year, 100% inside 40. So if we get into a field goal battle, I don't like our shots. But
no, I mean, I don't know how, you probably don't know this off the top of your head, but Michigan hasn't had a lot of big games where we were watching them. How's their red zone offense? Like, I don't know how it is compared to ours.
It's good. I think there's only 3 times that they haven't scored inside the red zone.
Because I mean, our place kicking has been an issue, right? It's not something we're going to go out there with a lot of confidence in. At the same time, I think we've done a really good job of not really needing the place kicker in really big situations to this point. Hopefully that can continue. We've done a good job of getting the ball in the end zone when we're in the red zone when we need a score. There hasn't been too many drives this year I could think of where it's like, man, we really need a touchdown here, and we settled for 3. So I hope that continues. On the other side, the ball to foot punter, we have Barney and Moore. What else do we need? He can make up whatever we lack in place kicking. Barney and Moore will make up with pinning him inside the 5. So
trying to talk about this, like the red zone matchup is coming back to red zone roulette, kind of like in the Auburn game where they march on the field, but then we'd force a turnover, but we would go to the field and score a touchdown. Yeah. So if we win another game of red zone roulette, I think
I think overlooked is that that big kick we had at Auburn that was like close to 50 yards, I believe it was. That was a big kick there to make that. So I guess we'll see this week, and we haven't really had a pressure kick to this point, so I hope it doesn't come down to a pressure kick.
Yeah, just to clean it up. So we're 95% conversion rate in the red zone, and Michigan's 91. So pretty comparable. So
we're gonna win.
Well, let's figure it out. We can kind of roll it right into pick your plate, and we can get those. You
want to do your score prediction first, Matt?
No, we can just do it and pick your plate. That's fine.
All right.
But let's recap how everyone did last week, though.
I got you here. So last week, Trent and I both went 4-1-1. That push being the TCU Kansas game. Matt, you went 2-3-1, and Winnie went 3-2-1. And just for the viewers, that one of those games factored in was the Illinois went over their win total this year. That was set at 4.5. They're actually ranked in the AP top 25. So we were on board with the Illinois offensive coordinator this year before anybody. So
the top 25 ranked, fighting Brett Bielema's.
Yeah. Well, I don't think Illinois is doing it by their offensive game plan. So I don't think we need to ride with their coordinator.
Real quick.
Real quick aside to this.
Illinois,
now,
Iowa.
Now that we're on the Illinois subject, why is Illinois ranked instead of Minnesota?
Because Minnesota hasn't played anybody, next to nobody.
I mean, their one loss being to Purdue. Their wins were impressive. I don't know. If I compare Illinois and Minnesota, if I'm giving someone the top, that last spot in the top 25, I think I got to give it to Minnesota. This weekend will be the test of that, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of our pick your plate games here. So I'll roll into that here. But before we get into that game, we'll do our game first. We're obviously going to Michigan. Michigan's favored by 7. I know. I'm excited for it, Matt. I think we're gonna win.
Let's book flights and go. When we go to away games, good things happen.
You and I thought a Phillies playoff ticket was too expensive. I don't think we can get a last second.
Well, they're like $300 to get in. The Michigan ticket will be cheaper than that, guaranteed.
I don't know about that.
Not that Tennessee ticket. That's what I saw is like $600 right now to get into that game on Saturday.
Well, it's their first big game in 40 years.
That's very true. I saw their last big game in person. All right, Coco.
I'll start with Matt here. Matt, we're underdogs.
Let's keep cutting him off before he gets to it. I think that's more fun.
This is gonna be fun to edit.
I'm used to it. So I have us winning 28-24. So obviously I'm taking us +7.
What do you got?
I'll go next. I got Penn State 23-20.
Jeez, two victories here. Make it 3. I'm going Penn State 28, Michigan 21.
Pat, what do you got?
Kyle, did you make a guest slot for Pat?
I did make a guest slot for Pat, so he'll be on the.
Good. I feel good to be a guest picker. I'm going to have to go against the trend. I have Michigan 35, Penn State 24. Yeah, I don't want it to happen, but kind of have to stick with your guns.
Me and Pat are incredibly close here. I don't give score predictions, but that 10-point mark is right where I'm at with this. I got to take Michigan to cover. I don't think it's a blowout. I do think it's a close game. I'm right around that 10-point mark.
We're getting them closer to giving a score prediction.
I think Pat gets the golden ticket for being the first person to pick against Penn State.
It's true.
In the show's history. I mean, granted, we haven't had a lot of games to pick against them, but
I think I did.
When he picked against he picked against
Purdue.
He picked Purdue against us.
Well, that shows you what I think of my winning.
And then
so
Kyle took Ohio.
We got over under 52 for the game.
I hope Matt counteracts his score prediction here.
Am I allowed to go push?
Sure, that's bold.
That's really bold.
I mean, all right, I'll go over because my 28-24 hits me right at 52.
Well, that's dumb.
I don't want to pick a different score because that's what I think the game's going to turn out to be. So thereabouts. I have a sixth sense about these things. So, but I'll go over. I'll go over.
Well, with my 28-21, I'm going under the 52. So
good job.
Okay, I forget your score, so
I'm under. So
you're under.
Yeah,
I'm over.
I'm going over.
Pat helped him out. Good job, Pat.
Matt, going down to that Alabama-Tennessee game, that first big Tennessee game in a while. Rocky Top's going to be bouncing. Bama's favored by 7.5 going down there.
This is why it sucks that we do this show on Monday, because there's so much that's left in the air about this game. So really it comes down to, is Bryce Young going to play or not? I think if Bryce Young plays, Bama pulls this one out, but I don't know. I'm going to take Tennessee to cover just to hedge.
Tennessee to cover.
Going with what Matt said, with Bryce Young, I feel like if he doesn't play, it's like a 3-point Bama edge. But if Bryce Young, if he plays, I think Bama will be fair by 10. So I feel like Vegas is in the middle, or trying to be they don't know what's going to happen.
So, in my opinion, too many people this many people can't be picking against Alabama, and it's not just you guys. Nationally, I feel like every 90% of the people are on Tennessee. Half the people to win outright, let alone with the points. I have to take Alabama in this spot when no one thinks Alabama's going to win. It feels like It's when they're going to come out and put up a statement. I do think Bryce Young's going to play based on like the reports last week. I don't know. It's a little contradicting because they made it sound like he could have played. But then again, if you're struggling that bad to beat an A&M team, why on earth didn't he play?
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. Like if he was healthy, like if you're down that fourth quarter, it's one possession game. Like why isn't he in there? But I guess also the fact that like is he going to be 100% this weekend?
Yep. Like, where are you at with this game, Pat? Are you riding on the train with me yet, or are you jumping off?
At 7.5, I'll take Tennessee, but if Young plays, I think Alabama wins by around a touchdown. If he doesn't play, I kind of like a money line sprinkle on Tennessee.
Kyle, what did you say? I didn't even hear you.
I took Tennessee.
Okay, you were like back and forth, but I didn't think you said what you were going with.
Oh, I took Tennessee with that.
In reality, with it being the biggest game for Tennessee in our lifetimes, the most probable and most hilarious thing is Alabama just crushes them. It just kills their hope.
That's like like my gut says like I want to like Tennessee, but the fact that 90% of the people seem to be on Tennessee, it's like
feel the fire.
I think it's also
it just seems too obvious. I have to take Alabama.
Yeah.
I think also the fact that Bama almost got embarrassed at home last weekend against A&M. Like I don't know when you'd be playing angry Nick Saban team a week after that.
But that's the thing. Every single week this season, I'm like, all right, well, Bama's going to turn it around. Bama's going to turn it around. Bama's going to turn it around. They haven't yet, which is why I'm just kind of like.
And Tennessee each week is like, are they back? And each week so far, they've been back.
And Alabama also really struggles on the road, like the past like 2 or so seasons. And I just like that environment, like they've struggled in lesser environments. And I just think that place can be rocking. So even with Bryce Young back, I think it's going to be a battle.
Yeah, this team doesn't seem to have the same discipline as previous Nick Saban teams.
Mm-hmm.
Prop bet: does Nick Saban get hit by an inanimate object?
If Kyle's playing golf in the Tennessee area this weekend, he'll probably get hit with a golf ball.
Kyle shot an 88 this weekend, so
good weekend. Front nine. Oof.
Always when I'm not there.
Moving on here, we got Oklahoma State beat them once. All that matters. It only takes one time. Oklahoma State TCU. That's over under is 68.5. I think I saw that TCU was favored by 3.5 in that game. I think surely like just on principle, that's just too many points. I'm going under just because like I don't know, just too many points. It's hard to get there.
That I was going to make it an inappropriate joke, but I'm not going to do it.
Wow.
I think, yeah, TCU has had trouble covering these over-unders, and so has Oklahoma State in point totals that are less. And I think Oklahoma State's defense hasn't taken that much of a dip from last year. Like everyone thought it would, and you know, they have, obviously. They were a great defense last year, but certainly the best that I think TCU is going to play to date. So I'm going to go under too.
I'm going to go with the over. I mean, both teams, if I'm not mistaken, are averaging 45 points a game. So anything can happen.
Yeah. These are I don't like personally, I do it for this, but like I never throw money on anything over unders. I don't enjoy betting. This is like the eighth. This is the eighth one.
This is the eighth one he said like in a row. Well, I don't pick these.
I don't like over unders. It's just not a bet I like. But I guess I got to take the over here.
Pat, what do you got?
Following me.
My gut originally when I saw that 68.5 was, man, you got to take the under. And then I thought about it and I was like, I could easily see this game being like a 38-35 type of game, you know, back and forth, especially with that 3-point spread. So I'm going to go with the over.
Pat sides with the good guys.
I'm still laughing at Winnie's. Anything can happen. So I'm going to go with the statistical average of each team scoring 45 points. It's playing right into their chance.
Hey, I mean, I've been pretty close with some of my predictions this year, so Trent likes when I say.
Wow, doesn't he have the worst record?
No, he's tied with you for the worst record.
Okay. That's a self burn.
Yeah, he got used out there.
The fade Winnie principle is no longer
So
really.
he technically does have the worst record.
I
He's
think
just tied,
someone's got
tied with me for it.
Someone's got to check how Kyle's adding this stuff up because I don't think that
Someone can
you and
allow
I are
this.
tied. and Matt and Kyle are tied.
there's no doubt in my mind that
Kyle was
he's
like
throwing a
last
few
place
extra
at one
numbers
point.
in.
There's a 0% chance if someone rewatched this, our actual picks and then the actual results, that they're accurate.
And we need an auditor.
John, audit our picks.
Yeah. Hey, John God, there's your shout out for the day.
Well, it's gonna come in like the last week of the season that Kyle has like 20 more games picked than the rest of us, just so he gets enough points to go over.
Win.
He's
His
making
Excel formula was wrong all season.
well, he's making little side bets that he's accounting for himself.
True man. Trent, before we start here, he's talking about Illinois, Minnesota. Illinois is ranked. Minnesota's not. Minnesota goes to Illinois. They're favored by 6.5. So what do you got?
This is a must win for Minnesota.
Because you want to see
But not for Minnesota, for us. But it's a must win for Minnesota to win. So therefore that we can have a top 25 matchup for the whiteout game. Even if we lose this weekend, right, we'll have one loss. I think it's critical Minnesota comes in with that one loss yet and cracks that top 25. Whether you like it or not, that's just the way the narrative works, right? I mean, if they come in ranked 26th, it doesn't get as much national attention as if they come in at 25. We'll be ranked win or loss as long as we don't get the doors blown off of us by like 80. I don't imagine us dropping out of the top 25. So I want Minnesota to win. I need Minnesota to win here.
So you're taking them to cover?
Yeah.
Winnie, what do you got?
Trent said it all. Minnesota to cover.
Starting with Trent. I think Minnesota's gonna win the game, but I don't know. I think the Fighting Brett Billy must just have a weird season going right now. So I'm thinking Illinois to cover, but I do think Minnesota's gonna pull it out.
That was that coordinator's name. Barry
Looney Jr. Whatever the hell his name is.
That's a boy.
This is a pro Barry Looney Jr. podcast.
Coming on next week.
Yep.
Matt, what do you got?
I'm with you. I think Minnesota wins, but Illinois covers. Their defense has been strong this year. So, yeah, a game at home, that place is going to be probably rocking. So I'll go with Illinois to at least cover.
Who are you riding with?
Wow. I would love if Minnesota was ranked, but I don't see it. I think they're kind of fraudulent in a way. And I think Illinois got a good defense. I think they showed signs of it last year against us, which was depressing to say the least. They're a 75-yard, 2-minute drive away from being 6-0 right now if they wouldn't have lost that game to Indiana, a game that I also bet on. But I think Illinois covers, and I think they actually win this game outright at home.
Did you guys we're talking about Illinois, and did you guys see any of that Iowa-Illinois game? Final score was 9-6. Illinois won I think it was last 3 minutes, kicked the game, go ahead field goal.
Pride, my eyes couldn't take it.
Yeah. I forget what game Trent we're watching downstairs here, but we're saw that game last season more entertaining.
Yeah, it gets to a point where games that comical. Are so they're so bad it becomes good. I sort of thought the NFL game last week got to that point where it's
the Thursday night
it was
game.
So bad that it became interesting at some point.
Well, any game that Iowa plays in this year kind of hits that category. So
I got a last Coco Sportsbook special here.
This is you.
Yeah, this is me. Penn State over under 350 total yards against Michigan. Let's go Winnie. Winnie, who do you got?
I mean, my score might not reflect it, but I'm going to go with the over. I don't know. I just think, like I said earlier, I think this is the game where we kind of come together. The score might not reflect it, but I think we'll definitely get the yards to go over.
Is this a Kyle Schumann sportsbook prop or a Barstool sportsbook prop?
No, this is a Kyle Schumann sportsbook.
Yeah.
Is there an actual bet? Is there an actual line out there I could base on?
No, I did not look.
No.
There's probably a real line that's 100 yards different than Kyle's.
Well, is it making you think right now? It's where to go with it. So Trent, if there's a line that's 100 yards off, it should be easy for you.
I don't know which way it would be, Kyle. I'm not a Vegas shark. All right. Now I did like the over in our game. I do think it's going to be an offensive game. I think both teams are going to put up some points. I like the over.
Matt?
I think under. Oh, did you say Pat or Matt?
You say Pat or Matt?
Yeah,
it's a free for all.
Go ahead, Pat. Go.
Okay. I also like the over. I think 350 will get there with relative ease. I think we're going to move the ball pretty well. I have a feeling that there's going to be a Sean Clifford turnover, whether that's a strip or an untimely interception that's just in a bad spot after we move the ball 50 yards up the field. So I'll take the over.
Coco, did you go yet? Or
I can say mine. Doesn't matter. I'm going over with my score prediction. I don't think there's a way that 28-21 hits without us going over 350.
I was gonna go under, but the more I think about it, I'll just go over too.
Oh, be different.
Watch us get like
You don't have to
175
follow
yards.
me, Matt. Don't follow me, Matt.
Nick Singleton's probably going to rush for 200 this week. So
Yeah, he's going to go off. And
the rest of the team should be able to get 150 yards.
yeah,
We'll see.
Parker
And
Washington has a big
then
day.
we'll come out with 180 yards of total offense and score like 8 points.
As long as Michigan scores 7, we're good.
Yeah.
All right. I am taking the reins. We're going back into last call. So let's wrap this up. Winnie did not come up with a question, so we'll
No, I got it. I was just thinking we were going to
He
run
forgot.
through it.
Yeah.
I had one earlier. I just didn't write it down. Now I'm in trouble.
Yeah. Try it.
I've won. Okay.
All right.
Do you like
I got one.
dogs at tailgates?
Do you like 2 dogs?
I'll never
Two dogs
get
at tailgate?
No. All right. So this one's very hypothetical. Would you rather, and it's an interesting one. Would you rather lose to Michigan and Ohio State, right? But in this hypothetical, like both Michigan and Ohio State make the playoffs. So we get a Rose Bowl and we win the Rose Bowl. Or would you rather beat both Michigan and Ohio State, but then have this crazy letdown game and lose to Michigan State, the last game of the year, and then go to the Big Ten championship in this scenario and lose the Big Ten championship? Both ways ending with 2 losses, one to Michigan and Ohio State with the Rose Bowl victory, one beating those two, probably the highest this program's been in a long time, if not ever. But then we'd have this insane letdown against Michigan State.
Do we go to the Rose Bowl either way, or in your scenario?
Well, probably.
Do we win the Rose Bowl?
No,
Because both scenarios.
we lose it. No, we probably wouldn't go to the Rose Bowl. I'm guessing the Big Ten champ.
I think we had something similar to this earlier in the year when we were talking about like losing to Ohio State versus whatever, winning the white. I forget what it was exactly, but I think
Here's sort of the way I look at this, right? We're probably expected to lose to Michigan and expect to lose to Ohio State, right? They're going to be favored in both of those games. So it's like you lose to them, it's like, but it's not a big deal. But I mean, if then we could go win the Rose Bowl, that's a pretty big deal in this scenario. Flip that. The opposite of this is if we beat Michigan, Ohio State, and we are undefeated, assuming we beat everyone else, that final game of the year being Michigan State, I just don't know if I could put up with the fact that like we would drop that game to Michigan State if we were undefeated going into that final game, meaning like we just win, we're in the Big Ten championship, we win that, we're in the playoffs. Like, I mean, it would be a frenzy like no other. So I just could not bring myself to be at that level of a high and then lose in that fashion to end the season. So I'd have to go with 2 losses against Michigan, Ohio State, and make the Rose Bowl in this scenario.
What I was saying before was I think we talked about this a little bit, and the way I almost see it is that I would rather win both those games and then lose to Michigan State, just because I feel like it would kind of change the tide, hopefully, in the upcoming seasons, that these guys can be beat during the regular season.
Yeah, but in the hypothetical, again, it's a complicated hypothetical, but we're also losing the Big Ten championship game.
I get that,
because if we were winning the Big Ten championship game, I think it's like, I'll take the 2 huge wins, a bad loss, but still win the Big Ten. But the Big Ten West sucks, so we'd be losing another bad game to the West.
No, I get when he's saying. I think that like, the saying that Penn State doesn't win big games or Franklin can't win big games. If we go at Michigan and win and beat Ohio State at home, I guess I get that it's a big gut punch. Yes, it sucks, but like I think that narrative changes a little bit going into the offseason. It's like, oh, we beat these teams last year, but yes, we lose to Michigan State. We need to clean that up.
Plus, Kyle can come up with a good excuse for the reason we lost to Michigan State, and then
yeah, Kyle ate a grape that game.
Yeah, exactly.
It's late.
I personally just don't like the level of high this program would be at if we were to get undefeated. Like it would be more than a gut punch, Kyle. It would be an outright stab.
break a window, right?
Right in the kick where the sun don't shine.
Pat, what do you think?
I kind of agree with Trent. I never thought I'd say that I'd rather lose an extra game in there, but adding on the Big Ten championship loss on top of that, because like 11-0 going into that like final game of the season, we'd be ranked like number 2, maybe number 1, depending on how things shake out. Like you're definitely you're in the playoff, and you're probably like the higher seed in your matchup too. And then to lose to what I think is going to be a terrible Michigan State team this year, who might not even be bowl eligible or right on that line, and then lose to Illinois or something, in the Big Ten championship, that would just be awful. So yeah, I couldn't do that. I'll take the 2 losses.
Yeah, and so I was the one that posed that question before about would you rather go to a New Year's Six, lose to Ohio State, or beat Ohio State, go to a lesser bowl? And I went with trying to gain ground on the program, but I think at this point a bigger high level trend is us peaking too early in the season. So if we went and we beat Ohio State, Michigan, and we're just like peaking all the way up and then came crashing down like that, like that's a problem. So yeah, give me the losses to Michigan and Ohio State.
My question's actually playoff related, so it's actually a good way to feed into my question.
I tried to do that.
We planned this. If the 12-team playoff was implemented this year, how confident are you that we would make it? Like again, going off 2 losses or 3 losses, do you think we're gonna? It's like I think we had a set that we would have made the playoff, like half the playoffs since inception if this 12-team format was inserted. So how likely do you think we would make a 12-team playoff this year?
I feel very good about it just because I feel like even if we have 2 losses to Michigan, Ohio State, chances are Michigan's going to finish with a loss to Ohio State, and Ohio State would finish undefeated, or vice versa there. So your 2 losses would be to 2 teams with a combined total loss of 1. I think we'd be in it on the back end.
Last year, seeing the collapse is what it is, kind of tampers my whole
That's what I'm thinking.
Feeling on that. But I would say probably like 60 to 70% confident that we would make it. I think again we should go 10-2, and that would put us right inside that range. So
yeah, I think we get like the 11th seed or something like that. We get like a lower seed, but we do sneak in there.
You might call me psychotic, but there's a wild sense to me that thinks we're going to go undefeated. So I'd say very confident that we would make the 12 team.
How do you wait to pick your plate to throw that out?
When he's giving us we're gonna get a home field advantage and everything.
We're not. We're getting a bye.
We'll have the bye. That's right.
Bye.
Yeah, forget that. Let's lose 1 game so we could be in that 5 through 8.
Trent, going off your scenario, if we lost that home playoff game? That's another we had this great chance.
Yeah, but we'd be losing to a top 12 team at that point.
Still suck.
Well, you got to the dance at least.
Yeah, we got there. That's all we really want as Penn State fans, right?
Yeah.
Trent, that's a Penn State basketball approach. Just want to get to the dance.
and then we get to the dance and it's canceled.
Yeah.
Yep.
Pat, what about you?
Yeah, I think 2 losses, obviously, I think it's a lock to get in. And I've looked at stuff in the past, and depending, you might even be able to slide in with 3 losses into one of those last spots, depending on how everything shakes out year to year. I know we would have been like right on the fringe that one 2018 season with McSorley. So I think we could, but I still don't know if this year's any different than last year. So I'm also in that 50 to 60% range of that we actually could, just because I don't know if we actually are a top 10 team, or if it's just one of those some teams in front of us lost, so we moved up.
We've been a top 10 JP poll team from the very start, so that's the only that's my saving grace. So all right, everyone gave their answer there.
I think so. Yeah.
Yep. All right, I will go next. Mine is reeling it back into this week. So we've saw an interesting running back rotation 2 weeks ago, to say the least. Who's our starting running back this week?
Someone that didn't fumble the ball last week.
Tank Smith.
I think it's going to be Nick.
So it's only because he wasn't given the opportunity.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be Nick. I would like it to be Katron, but I think it's going to be Nick.
Yeah. I think the coaches are going to throw, in terms of like that type of stuff. I think they're going to throw the fumbles out the window last week. I know James Franklin says like weather is never an excuse, which of course he's going to say that. But I don't think he holds it against any of the backs for last week, and I think we see Singleton come out this week.
I don't have the like box scores up or anything like that, Matt. Maybe you know better than me, but if I'm not mistaken, the carries have been pretty consistent, even though like the yards have been different between Allen and Singleton. So I mean, to me, they're gonna probably get the same amount of carries throughout the game. But to start off the game, I think I'm gonna switch it up, and I think Allen might get the first series, the first couple plays, just based off of how he's been. I mean, I know the fumbles and whatnot, but I think they'll go with the hot hand and then see how things progress throughout the game.
Yeah, I'll let Pat take that one because I think he said he was looking at stuff a little bit deeper this week. So.
Yeah, I think they're going to start Singleton, but I don't know how you guys have felt watching the first 5 games of the season, but I kind of liked the way that Katron Allen plays more than Singleton. I feel like a lot of times Singleton has that big play ability to, break a long run and has that breakaway speed, but a lot of those runs I've noticed are outside where he kind of goes, he gets impatient and then bounces, and he's just so much faster and talented than everybody else. He outruns them. Versus Allen, I mean, we saw him get run down in, what was that, the Central Michigan game. He doesn't have the breakaway speed, but he's got great vision and he can get you 4 or 5 yards of carry. And I think against like a team like Michigan, that's going to be way more crucial because they're not going to necessarily they have the same level of athletes. So they're not going to give you those, breakaway lanes outside that you might get against a Central Michigan or against an Ohio or those kind of things. So I kind of think at this point in time, Katron Allen is the better back, but obviously if Singleton gets better vision, he does, I think, has more talent.
Do you think we could use either of our backs in the receiving game a little more, getting them out in space? I feel like, I mean, we did that so much with an athlete like Saquon. I don't think we've given our backs enough receptions this year.
Yeah,
like we've done it in flashes, but it just hasn't been consistent.
Yeah, like that wheel route. That would be awesome.
Yeah, but I feel like oftentimes it's more, just out in the flat, like they chip a block and then just go out in the like it's not really like a designed run route across like the middle where they're actually running sort of a receiving route from the backfield. I just think that with their talent, I think we could try to get them in open space a little more.
Well, especially go ahead.
I'm sorry, man. No, I was talking to my dad. He never saying like I think it'd be interesting to see a formation where Clifford's with a split back, maybe like fake the dive to Katron or like run like a read option off that. Then if Clifford keeps the ball, have Singleton follow Clifford and do a speed option the other way. I think that'd be a.
Hang on, I think I need to pull up the Zoom whiteboard so you can draw that play so I can follow that.
Yeah.
Listen, get Nick back to his like option days back at Mifflin.
You want him to be more the lead block though for Clifford?
No. Fake the read. Do the speed option.
Yeah.
I ran in NCAA football 14 all the time.
Yeah, that's not outdated at all. I was just gonna add on to Pat's point, like what he said about Singleton is true. Like his biggest plays come when he gets to the edge and gets in space. So I think we definitely should use them in the passing game more just for that edge. But I agree. I think Allen is definitely the more dependable back at this point, like the more every down back kind of material. But I think it will still end up being Singleton just because. Hey, you hit a 70-yard run. Like even if the odds of that happening are low, it changes the game. So
yeah, they feed nicely off each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Winnie, what do you got?
So I did come up with a question. It is actually related to the game, so it's good follow up off of Matt there. Do you guys have a group in particular that you think will be the difference maker in this game for Penn State? Not an individual player, but do you think like the offensive line, the defensive line, linebackers?
Winnie's gonna go with the tight ends.
I'm actually gonna go. I'm hoping the linebackers actually show up this week. To be honest, is gonna be mine.
Yeah.
Have we gone like an hour and 20 minutes into this episode without Winnie mentioning Brenton Strange? I think we have.
I'm trying to give him some breathing room this week. I can't be his pen pal like you and Franklin.
He's getting a little clingy.
He doesn't want Michigan to get word. He wants to sneak attack him. Because Harbaugh's probably watching this.
He is.
Yeah. So
I texted him.
I'll just hit mine quick because we are going very over here. I think it's got to be wide receivers. I mean, they've kind of, been a little disappointing this entire year, and more so just who's going to fill that third wide receiver spot. I mean, it's probably going to be Trey Wallace if Lambert Smith can't go. He has big playability, but we haven't seen it. So
I got to go with the offensive line here. I mean, that's the key to our offense is I think we've seen it when they play well. Our offense looks good. We've seen it at Auburn. We've also seen when they've struggled and we've struggled. It has to be the offensive line. If they play well and play clean, I think we can move the ball, and I think that's our best shot at winning.
Right. I think it's got to be our secondary. If we can lock down their defense on the outside, we can sack the box, focus on their run game. So that's mine one.
We all take two. We could cover all the position groups.
Yeah, and start this whole podcast over. Pat, who do you got?
I think the linebackers, but more specifically in pass coverage. Our defense has been really good in run coverage all season, but I can't tell you how many times I'm watching a game where I'm just screaming at the TV or screaming from my seat because another one of our linebackers has just let a tight end or, a wide receiver in motion run free. And it's extremely frustrating. And I really hope it doesn't come back to bite us now that we're playing more talented teams on our schedule.
So that's why we need Pat on here with his hard-hitting journalism. We tend to give Tyler Elston a little bit of a pass because he's a hometown hero.
Don't say we. That's you guys.
Listen, you don't talk.
I don't know him.
Okay, Jan. For the amount of time you went and just praised to Jan Johnson when he played.
So. Jan was awesome.
Oh, here we go. Now you better end this.
Pat, wait, right. Pat. What was your opinion on Jan Johnson when he played?
By his last season, he was solid.
There we go.
Yeah. No, his initial reaction was the right one.
No, it's good analysis.
It was more like
I thought I was going to see Jan this weekend at the wedding, but I wasn't there. I would have been hanging out with him the whole time.
You probably would have married him.
I would have tried. Hey, while you're here, ordaining, you got a minute.
All right. Last but certainly not least, Pat, what do you got?
All right. So mine's a little bit more of I don't know if it'd be a hot take, but it's definitely possible. Does going 0-3 during the upcoming 3-game stretch put Franklin on the hot seat?
No. Based on these guys saying that they find it more, they would be more surprised if we went 0-3 than 3-0. I'm gonna guess their take is no. I'm gonna say yes. I mean, that has to put him on the hot seat, right? Another 5-0 start. With that, we're trending back in that 5-0 start to blowing up the entire season, right? With 3 straight losses. He has to be.
I think the excuses start to become few and far between then at that point, right? I mean, we made all these kind of excuses for him over this time, but I think if he loses the next 3, I think he's definitely on the hot seat.
Yeah. I think what we're really asking here, right, is if we lose to Minnesota, because I don't think losing to Michigan and Ohio State's putting him on the hot seat. If he loses to Minnesota, and doesn't pick up one of those 2 big games, I don't see how he's not.
Yeah. Also depending on how we look too. If we're at least competitive and as against Michigan and Ohio State, but yeah, if we non-competitive, lose by double digits, gotta be.
So even a Trent's point, right? Though, let's say we lose to Michigan and Ohio State, but we get blown out of the water, right? We lose by 30 or something to each of those guys, and then we barely beat Minnesota. Does that still kind of start the chatter, or do you think he's give him another year to see what happens? The guys are too young, kind of excuse.
No, I think you make that point when it's a young team, big atmospheres. I don't know. I feel like you could get in this continuously over and over again. I don't know.
Among the fans, right? He's going to be on he's on the hot seat for fans right now. Among the fans, 0-3, I don't think he'll definitely be on a major hot seat for the fan base. I don't think he's on Pat Kraft's hot seat.
Don't know if he can be. My God, 10 years, $90 million.
There's a big difference there. And also, I mean, he's not going it. No matter what, we could lose out the rest of the season, right? I mean, he has to come back next year with Drew Allar and this recruiting class coming in and everything going right. He has to get that shot next year, I would imagine. I mean,
losing out's a little extreme.
Yeah, no, that's extreme. I'm not. We better not lose to Rutgers in there. But yeah, I mean,
that game.
hey, 5-0. We're not 7-5. It's not too far from losing out.
Yeah. Yeah. But hey, optimistic. 1-0, 1-0, 1-0.
Michigan.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. So
I hope
All
I'm
right.
wrong. I hope we get on here and roast me, and I'll roast Pat as well for how dumb we were.
I hope.
I
so.
hope so.
I'll stay up all
this-
night making the edits of you saying.
I've never wanted to be wrong more.
Like
Agreed.
how in our preseason we all picked to lose at Michigan,
Did I?
and now we're all talking some of us talking to winning the game. So I don't know. I think we're gonna win, but let's see.
well, we'll find out. And win, lose, or draw, come back next week for Tailgate Talk and we will recap.
Draw.
We'll recap it all. I mean, hey, these overtime rules now are ridiculous. It wouldn't surprise me if at some point
I just
put
want us to
a
win.
mercy
Please
killing.
I want us to win.
This podcast has been in overtime every episode.
Tell
We're
me
in
about
like-
it.
We're in
I
like
just
6
want-
overtimes right now.
I just want us to win, just so Trent can read his sports media the next week, college football media. That's all I care about.
His
I don't
Reader's
care.
Digest.
It's obviously not helping him because his opinions aren't too educated anyway. So, all right.
Wow.
And with that, I am closing it out. So we are Tailgate Talk, and we'll see you next time.